The top stories tonight in Y News. To further address the seemingly uncontrollable increase in fuel prices, a House committee approved a substitute bill that seeks to amend the oil deregulation law.
Several groups, meanwhile, are pressing their concerns, already conducting a protest to condemn what they claim to be the failure of the government to address the looming oil prices.
The national government may no longer hold a fifth round of the Bayanihan Bakunahan or National Vaccination Days.
Russian and Ukrainian officials hold a new round of talks as Moscow's invading forces show no sign of easing their onslaught.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Tuesday, March 15, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am Herlene Delgado.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news. The House of Representatives Committee on Energy approved today the substitute bill amending Republic Act 8479 or the Downstream Oil Industry Deregulation Act of 1998. Nel Maribohok will tell us why.
Motion is approved.
The proposal to amend the Republic Act No. 8479 or the Downstream Oil Industry Deregulation Act of 1998 is now up for plenary discussion. This is after the House Committee on Energy approved the unnumbered substitute bill to amend the said law. House Panel Chair Juan Miguel Macapagal Arroyo stated that any large adjustment in oil prices makes it difficult for businesses and consumers to adjust quickly, thereby causing disruptions. Marikina City 2nd District Representative Stella Luz Kimbo's amendments include revision to Section 5 of the draft bill to clearly reflect that the monitoring system of the Department of Energy shall be based in the unbundled retail price of petroleum products. This also includes granting the President power to control the imposition of fuel excise tax.
I would like to further propose, Mr. Chair, to grant the President the power to suspend or decrease fuel excise tax rates when Dubai MOPS price reaches $80 per barrel.
Bayan Muna Party List Representative Carlos Zarate has also sought to repeal the oil deregulation law.
Ibasura na itong oil deregulation law, no? Because after 24 years, nakita natin kung gaano ang napakasamang epekto nito, no? Hindi lang sa ating ekonomiya, kundi sa ating mga mamamayan. Inanukala nga natin na dapat ibalik na ito sa isang regulated regime, no?
The committee also called for a special session of Congress to be convened so that the bill could be approved and enacted immediately. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Various groups held protests today amid the series of oil price hike brought about by the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. JP Nunez explains why.
Jeepney drivers and operators reiterate their call for the government to immediately suspend the fuel excise tax. That was the suggestion of the transport group Piston in order to decrease the current prices of petroleum products in gasoline stations. According to Modi Floranda, national president of Piston, more than 300 pesos from their earnings are spent only for their diesel.
Ngayon, pag tingnan po natin, ay halos 363 pesos kada araw yung nawawalang kita na dapat ito ay nagagamit na nga namin doon sa pangangailangan ng aming pamilya, pambili ng pagkain, pabayad ng kuryente ng tubig, pero dahil sa patuloy na pagtaas ng presyo ng petrolyo, ito ay direktang nawawala.
Earlier today, the transport group kicked off their week-long protests in some parts of Metro Manila and nearby provinces. With the current big-time oil price hike after 11 weeks of straight increase, the transport group warns to conduct transport strike if the government will not impose immediate action.
Hindi may iwasan na humantong sa ating pasada kung tuloy-tuloy natataas yung presyo ng petrolyo at walang ginagawang pamahalaan.
Meanwhile, the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority has deployed buses and trucks to assist the commuters who will be affected by the transport strike. MMDA Chairman Romando Artes said 11 commuter vans, 6 buses, and 3 military trucks were pre-positioned in strategic areas to give free rides to the commuting public. Earlier, oil companies imposed oil price hike of 13.15 pesos per liter for diesel and 7.10 pesos per liter for gasoline. Fishermen's Group Pamalakaya also suspended their fishing operations to join the protest calling for the cancellation of the oil deregulation law.
Sa maliliit na mga mangingisda, yung 1,000 piso, puhunan na kaagad yun ng mga maliliit na mangingisda para makapalaot sa isang araw. Kung makakahuli ka lang din ng 10 kilo na isda, sa 120 ang 1 kilo ng isda, ay di halos 1,200 lang ang magiging benta. Aalisin mo yung 1,000 na gastos sa konsumo, yung 200 lang yung matitira sa'yo.
The group also warns they may conduct a week-long strike which may affect the supply of fish in the market.
Pwede itong tumagal dahil sa hindi pa nga nasusolusyonan at nananatiling plano pa lamang yung pagbibigay ng subsidyo, yung panawagan natin na subsidyo para doon sa mga mangingisda.
JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board confirms crediting the fuel subsidy to over 100,000 operators of public utility jeepneys today. Other beneficiaries, however, should go to their nearest LTFRB regional office. Meanwhile, the agency says tricycle drivers may receive less than 6,500 peso fuel subsidy. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why live. Yes, Asher.
Arlene, beneficiaries of the 2.5 billion peso fuel subsidy of the government should have bank cards under the Pantawid Pasada program. This is where the 6,500 peso subsidy will be credited by the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board through the Land Bank of the Philippines. While the aid to public utility jeepneys are already being distributed today through their Pantawid Pasada cards, other beneficiaries will still need to go to the nearest LTFRB regional office to begin the process of having their own fuel cards. Upon verification of the validity of their documentary requirements in active operation, the LTFRB will then endorse them to Land Bank for their bank details and fuel card production.
For the rest po, like for example na yung mga UV Express, Taxi, and TNBS, it will really be dependent on how fast they are going to go to the LTFRB offices to process the requirements po. We're hoping na before the end of the month, matatapos na po tayo sa buong proseso at mabigay na po natin yung kabuuang 2.5 billion po.
The LTFRB, meanwhile, is coordinating with the Department of the Interior and local government for the list of tricycle operators who are also qualified to receive the fuel subsidy. The agency says their number will depend on the list that the DILG will provide. But should it go beyond the target number of beneficiaries, the LTFRB will be obliged to divide the allocated subsidy proportional to the total number of tricycle drivers.
Ideally, sa program of works natin, 6,500 talaga yun. Pero kapag sobra-sobra po yung listahan na binigay sa atin ng DILG, mapipilitan po tayo na magiging proportionate po yung magiging sharing po nila.
Harleen, the LTFRB further explains that they are also considering the operational cost of the tricycles compared to other public conveyances, that they may permit lower subsidy for the government. Harleen?
Thank you, Asher Kadapan Jr. reporting live from Quezon City.
Meanwhile, along with an increase in oil prices of vegetable and meat has increased in some markets in Metro Manila. Jenice Inhente will tell us why.
The prices of some vegetables have spiked in some public market in Metro Manila. The price of bell pepper jumped to 280 pesos per kilo from 120 pesos in Divisoria Public Market. Cabbage prices in the said market has also increased to 30 pesos per kilo from 15 pesos per kilo. A kilo of cucumber now costs 30 pesos while 20 pesos was added to carrots prices, increasing its per kilo to 120.
Oo, tumaas talaga. Gulay Baguio tumaas, lalo yung bell pepper. O, 300, 280 na ang puhunan. Magkano bebenta? 300, hindi kaya ng buyer. Yun, pagtingi-tingi lang naman sa araw eh. Pagtingi, hindi na rin kaya talaga bibilin. Pag ganun kamahal. Katulad ng repolyo, dating 15, 20, ngayon 30. Yung pipino, yan, tumaas talaga. Dati ano lang yan, 40, ngayon 70. Nakaraan linggo pa. Bahal magto 2 weeks na ngayon. Siyempre sa taas ng gasolina, mataas ang gasolina, kasi lahat ng gulay tumataas.
Even though some vegetables have increased, others dropped their prices. According to DA's latest prevailing retail prices, the price of ampalaya has decreased by 20 pesos as well as Baguio beans, while 10 pesos was reduced in the price of imported red onions. The price of pork has also decreased by 10 to 20 pesos in some markets in Metro Manila, but other markets raised their prices up to 5 pesos per kilo.
Ay, kami, namumuna kami, namamahalan kami. Kasi minsan pag matumal, hindi kami nakapagbenta ng tamang presyo. Bagsak ang binta namin para mabili lang ang paninda namin.
Although some vegetables in the market have increased prices today, the Department of Agriculture still assures they are monitoring its prevailing prices in the markets to prevent price manipulation. Janice Enhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The national government may no longer hold another Bayanihan Bakunahan or National Vaccination Days, an official of the Department of Health says. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
Several areas in the country already reached their target population for COVID-19 vaccination. Others, however, still have low vaccination turnout, which the government aims to prioritize. National Vaccine Operations Chair and DOH Undersecretary Mirna Cabotaje said there is a need to boost COVID-19 vaccination in those areas instead of conducting a general Bayanihan Bakunahan.
Baka hindi na tayo magkaroon ng National Vaccination Day, mas focus na sa mga probinsyang kailangan ng tulong.
She also adds several individuals still refuse to get their COVID-19 vaccine since cases continue to decline. Others, meanwhile, still have doubts with the possible side effects of the vaccines. And VOC also explained some did not push through with their vaccination due to the heavy downpour in their respective areas.
Dumating talaga tayo sa puntong kailangan ng hanapin at kumbinsihin na magpabakuna ang ilan, no? Kasi nag-aatubili silang magpabakuna dahil sa edad daw nila, hindi na nila kailangan. Hindi daw kailangan kasi pababa na at wala na yung mga kaso. Meron pa rin fear of side effects.
The Bayanihan Bakunahan 4 was extended until March 18 in some regions and hopes to reach the 1.8 million target. The extension aims to vaccinate senior citizens. As of March 14, 1.4 million COVID-19 vaccines were administered during the National Vaccination Days.
So ang tututukan na lang natin yung mga iba't ibang lalong-lalo na yung mga syudad na hindi nakakamit ng kanilang parameters na fully vaccinated at least 70% at least 70% to 80% ng kanilang A2.
Despite the challenges, the government remains confident that the 90% target population will still be reached. Meanwhile, Yusek Cabotaje also said the National Capital Region is prepared to be placed under Alert Level 0 since more than 100% of their target population have been vaccinated. She, however, stressed the importance of getting booster doses before further easing alert level restrictions. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Department of Health says the term Alert Level 0 cannot be implemented yet in the Philippines. Meanwhile, all areas in the country are now under the low-risk classification for COVID-19. Aiko Miguel explains why.
Health spokesperson Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere clarifies that Alert Level 0 is not part of the alert level system in the Philippines. She added using this term may cause confusion and even complacency as COVID-19 remains a pandemic.
Yung term na Alert Level 0 was a term used internally, no, within DOH and the officials of IATF. It's like the stage, no, in our situation right now, kung saan magkakaroon tayo ng mas manageable ang mga kaso, mas makikita natin na nakakaagapay mismo ang ating healthcare system, mas mataas ang bakunahan. This is a transitional stage where we can go to the next level or to this new regime of alert level system. Yung alert level 0 na terminology natin, it's not a final term yet.
Undersecretary Vergere also explained that in the so-called scenario, the COVID-19 situation improves, cases continue to decline, and more areas will be placed under alert level 1. Also, when the Philippines is in a better state, there will be no more beds dedicated to COVID-19 patients. COVID-19 cases will also just be integrated to the infectious disease unit of hospitals. Dr. Ana Ong Lim of the DOH Technical Advisory Group also said the government still has to continuously prepare for a shift to a better situation.
Matagal pa bago mawala yung habits na natutunan natin ngayon regarding infection control. Kung dati kasi hindi natin binibigyan ng dalawang any second thoughts about avoiding infection or avoiding getting sick, dito nakita natin napakalaking impact nun nung natutunan natin ang minimum public health standards.
Metro Manila mayors, however, said once alert level 0 be implemented in the country, they are prepared.
Ang sa amin po, kung ano i-recommenda ng ating IATF. Pero ang aming sentimiento ay hanggat maaari, hindi po natin pwedeng i-impose kung hindi po i-impose ng IATF. Gusto lang po namin na patuloy pa rin na mag-suot face mask hanggang masabi na po natin na talagang hindi na po tayo matatamaan ng COVID-19, lalong-lalo na ngayong bukas na po ang ating mga airports para sa mga ibang bansa na nais dumalaw dito sa ating
Meanwhile, all areas in the country are now under low-risk classification for COVID-19. The country's 7-day moving average of COVID-19 cases is at 559, while NCR's daily average is at 162.
Lahat ng ating region sa ating buong bansa ay nasa low-risk classification na. Ang ating ICU at saka other bed utilization are all less than 50%. Deaths naman ngayon ay patuloy na bumababa din. Wala tayong nakikitaan na any regions na may uptick or pagtaas ng mga kaso in these past days.
Health experts emphasize that as long as the pandemic exists, wearing of face masks will be mandatory. People should isolate when experiencing COVID-19 symptoms, and proper ventilation should be in place in enclosed spaces. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
More areas in the Philippines will be placed under COVID-19 Alert Level 1 starting tomorrow, March 16 until March 31. Areas include Metro Manila, Abra, Apayao, Baguio City, Kalinga, Dagupan City, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, La Union, Pangasinan, Batanes, Cagayan, City of Santiago, Isabela, Quirino, Angeles City, Aurora, Bataan, Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, Olongapo City, Pampanga, Tarlac, Zambales, Batangas, Cavite, Laguna, Lucena City, Marinduque, Puerto Princesa City, Romblon, Naga City, Catanduanes, Aklan, Bacolod City, Capiz, Guimaras, Iloilo City, Cebu City, Siquijor, Biliran, Ormoc City, Tacloban City, Zamboanga City, Cagayan de Oro City, Camiguin, Davao City, Caraga, and Butuan City. Meanwhile, the remaining days of the country will be under COVID-19 Alert Level 2 until the end of March 2022.
The Philippines marks 2 years of facing the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was on March 14, 2020 when the community quarantine was first declared in the country due to the spreading virus, and now more areas are under less strict COVID restrictions. Rosalie Cos has the story.
2 years had passed since the Philippine government declared community quarantine due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Numerous areas in the country have been placed under Alert Level 1 or 2, and expectedly, more COVID restrictions will be eased in the coming months. This is amid a consecutive decline of new daily COVID-19 cases. However, public health experts warned the public not to be complacent. Even President Rodrigo Duterte himself believes pandemic is far from over.
There is no telling that one of these days another vicious virus will visit the country or the world all over. At panibagong ano ito, far different from what we have now.
The government is currently preparing for the National Action Plan Phase 5, which aims for a healthier and resilient Philippines. The target outcomes are to increase the COVID-19 recovery and vaccination rates and decrease the case fatality rate. While accelerating the socio-economic recovery, minimum public health standards such as physical distancing, mandatory face mask, hygiene and sanitation, more outdoor than indoor activities, and granular lockdowns will be observed.
Meron pa rin talagang physical distancing, pero ang mangyayari na po dito is yung mga individuals observe proper public health standards to protect themselves and people around them.
However, NEDA admitted the government has to provide public access to affordable testing kits, prophylaxis, and vaccines. Businesses and services must have safe settings and environmental quality. There should be continuity plan in case of virus surge. The government must also ensure social protection mechanism for the public. Right now, the government is still on the process of creating a pandemic response playbook. And hopefully, a pandemic flexibility bill will be pushed in the next administration for better and more timely response against the next potential pandemic. Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For those watching our live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. The Commission on Elections assures to approve the request of Vice President Leni Robredo's camp and other sectors to conduct random testing of ballots which were previously printed. Dante Amento tells us why.
Attorney Romulo Macalintal, Vice President Leni Robredo's lawyer, disclosed that the poll body did not inform political parties when the printing of ballots for the 2022 election started. Macalintal added their representatives or watchers were also denied to observe the proceedings of ballots printing at the National Printing Office, which is a violation of the law.
It's very, very clear under the law that the Comelec should have invited the political parties, the candidates, as they are entitled to send or fill in their watchers during the printing of all these election documents. This is the first time that this was disregarded by the Commission on Elections.
However, Commissioner Marlon Casquejo, who leads the printing committee, denies Macalintal's allegation.
Actually, if you try to read my letter, it's not a rejection. It's just something like, as of now, hindi pa po pwede. But ito na nga, since okay na tayo, okay na yung pandemic natin, hindi na tayo, wala nang surge. So we already open, but there is no such thing as rejection.
Macalintal also urged the poll body to conduct a random testing of those ballots printed without witnesses from political parties, candidate representatives, among others, for the sake of transparency. Commissioner George Erwin Garcia, meanwhile, responded that they will immediately grant the request only if there will be a formal letter.
Pagbibigyan po yun ng Commission on Elections. Pero kung pwede lang po, may proper na sulat man lang. Hinihintay po namin ng sulat para po kung mapapadala kagad sa amin kahit ngayong araw nito, kahit hanggang bukas. Tatalakayin po namin sa NBank. But definitely at this point ay may instruction po ang ating chairman at napag-usapan po namin kanina na pinapasabi niya na kinakailangan mag-grant natin ito.
Garcia explained any party can choose which ballots will undergo testing. The poll body will also invite all political parties to join the activity, which will be conducted at the National Printing Office. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Philippine National Police urged its retired members to spare the organization from any political views and opinions on social media. Leia Ilagan will tell us why.
The Philippine National Police distanced itself from retired members who openly endorse candidates for elected positions. PNP spokesperson Police Colonel Jean Fajardo said they received reports that some of the retired members are posting pictures wearing police uniforms while endorsing certain candidates.
Hindi po naiiwasan, yung iba po nating mga kababayan ay maaaring magkamali po o ika nga ay mag-isip na sila po ay active PNP members pa po. Kaya po, katulad po ng pakiusap po ng PNP po, kung maaari po ay i-spare yung PNP doon sa perceived notions na tayo po ay may sinusuportahan na particular na kandidato. Hindi lamang po yung individual na kandidato, pati po yung mga political parties na kanilang gustong suportahan dito sa election na ito.
Fajardo assures that the PNP is still apolitical and they are not endorsing any candidates.
Hanggat maaari po, yun po ang ating pakiusap sa ating po mga retired na miyembro po ng PNP. Unang-una, hindi po nga maiwasan na makakapag-isip at iisipin po ng ilan na makakakita po ng kanilang post na bakit ang PNP itong na to ay openly supporting this particular candidate. Akala ko ba ang PNP ay walang kikilingan at susuportahan? We are just protecting the PNP as an institution.
Fajardo said the PNP has nothing to do with the retired members' views, but they respect their preferences in choosing their candidates. Leia Ilagan, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The tandem of Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio will push for job creation instead of implementing strict lockdowns and alert level amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Nel Maribohok reports why.
The group of presidential candidate Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. and her running mate Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte held their caravan and campaign rally in the province of Nueva Ecija. Mayor Sara eyes the end of lockdowns and job losses for Filipinos brought about by the pandemic. The presidential daughter said she will focus on reviving jobs if she is elected as vice president in the May polls.
Kaya po dapat tinatanggal na ang mga lockdown at mga alert levels dahil sa pandemic. Dahil sabi po ng mga doktor, bakuna ang kailangan. May bakuna na ba?
Meanwhile, Marcos Jr. stressed that their supporters are not paid to attend their campaign rallies.
Hindi sila bayad.
He reiterated the call for unity as the country continues to grapple with COVID-19 pandemic.
Kaya't kailangan natin magkaisa dahil marami po tayong problemang hinaharap. Hinaharap natin ang problema, hindi pa tapos ang pandemya. Hinaharap natin ang problema ng ekonomiya.
BBM said national unity will help the country's recovery more quickly from the pandemic. Nel Maribohok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Presidential hopeful and Vice President Leni Robredo vows to implement long-term solutions to address skyrocketing prices of fuel products should she win the presidency. Meanwhile, the Robredo-Pangilinan tandem is unbothered by the recent survey results, but clarifies that they are also taking it seriously. This report will tell us why. With the unprecedented increase in prices of petroleum products, presidential candidate and Vice President Leni Robredo says the government should also look into establishing long-term solutions to mitigate its impact to motorists. In a media interview, Robredo says should she win as president, she will implement a service contracting program for PUV drivers and to shift to electric vehicles. With this, the Vice President explains the country would no longer depend heavily on gasoline and the impact of volatility of fuel prices in the global market would be reduced. Meanwhile, Robredo is not that concerned with the recent Pulse Asia survey results, with Bongbong Marcos still on the lead. The Leni-Kiko tandem expects the number to surge by the end of the month or by next month, just like what happened in the 2016 elections.
So too early ito para sabihin na hindi na tayo makakahabol or talon-talo tayo. If at all yung use sa amin ng surveys, mas nalalaman namin kung saan pa kailangan mag-exert more effort. Pero hindi natin ito isinasantabi.
So yung ano na yan, expected yan, ang susunod na survey ang hintay natin. Dahil doon na magre-reflect yung mga resulta ng debate na ipagharap sa publiko itong mga rally na ito.
Today, the Robredo ticket went back to Mindanao and visited North and South Cotabato. They also attended people's rallies in Kidapawan City, Coronadal City, and General Santos City. Despite losing in several areas in Mindanao in the 2016 vice presidential race, Robredo remains hopeful that it would be a different scenario in the upcoming polls with the help of their supporters and volunteers. Horilyn Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
For the news abroad, a new round of talks between Moscow and Ukraine on Monday didn't assuage Russian forces to advance in multiple cities across Ukraine. Red Cross said the punishing bombardment as negotiations happen has created nothing short of a nightmare for civilians. Annie Mancilia reports why live. Good evening, Annie.
Good evening, Elsie. The latest negotiations held via video conference involving higher-level officials from Russia and Ukraine ended without a breakthrough. An aide to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that after several hours of talk, negotiators took a technical pause and planned to meet again Tuesday. But just before dawn on Tuesday, large explosions thundered across Kyiv. Ukrainian officials said Russian forces shelled several suburbs of the capital. While House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Russia is not showing any signs of de-escalating. Nearly all of the Russian military offensives remained stalled after making little progress over the weekend, according to senior U.S. defense official. Russian troops were still about 15 kilometers from the center of Kyiv, and fighting continues on the outskirts of Ukraine's capital. Officials said Russian forces launched more than 900 missiles. Air raid alerts sounded in cities and towns around the country overnight from near the Russian border. Meanwhile, Mikhailo Podolyak, the aide to President Zelensky, tweeted that the negotiators would discuss peace ceasefire, immediate withdrawal of troops, and security guarantees. Elsie?
Thank you, Annie Mancilia, for that live report. Thousands of people have registered their interest to sponsor Ukrainian refugees under the new program launched by the government. Queenie Rivera details why live. Yes, Queenie?
The United Kingdom government launched a new Homes for Ukraine scheme on Monday. This offers the British citizens the chance to offer a home to Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war. The UK will pay people £350 or $456 a month if they can offer refugees a spare room or property for a minimum period of 6 months. According to UK Secretary for Housing and Communities Michael Gove, this sponsorship scheme would offer a lifeline to Ukrainian people. Moreover, there would be no limit, and the refugees will be entitled to work and have access to health and public benefits for 3 years. Currently, the phase 1 of the scheme will allow sponsors in the UK to nominate a Ukrainian person or family to sponsor. However, according to Secretary Gove, this would be extended to refugees with no family or links to UK, with the support of charities and community groups. Meanwhile, around 4,000 visas have been granted through the family scheme. The first visa program of the government to help the displaced Ukrainians. Elsie?
Queenie, are there any requirements and benefits for this sponsorship?
Yes, Elsie, both sponsors and refugees will be assessed, and the local councils will inspect accommodation if it is suitable. Moreover, each British sponsor who will house a Ukrainian refugee will be offered £350 per month. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Queenie Rivera, reporting live from Singapore. Britain's government announced on Monday that all remaining COVID-19 measures for travelers, including passenger locator forms and the requirement that unvaccinated people be tested for the virus before and after their arrivals, will end Friday to make holidays easier for the school vacation. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps confirmed in a tweet that all remaining travel measures will be stood down for travel to the UK from 4 a.m. on March 18. The said changes are possible due to the vaccine rollout and means greater freedom in time for Easter. UK airlines such as Virgin Atlantic and British Airways welcomed the news and said they will begin to ease mask-wearing requirements on some routes. Travelers leaving the UK may still be required to prove their vaccination status or provide evidence of a negative test according to the rules in place in their destination's country. Researchers in the United States say they have found that people who are exposed to artificial light at night show worse glucose and cardiovascular regulation compared with those who slept in the dark. Marvi Delphine will give us the details live. Yes, Marvi, go ahead.
Elsie, according to the study's author, Dr. Phyllis Z, the dim light that came from televisions or lamps left on at night entered the eyelids and disrupted sleep by keeping the body more alert despite the fact that participants slept with their eyes closed. 20 people were studied over 2 nights, with 10 spending both nights sleeping in dim conditions, while the other half spent 1 night in a room with a dim light and the next night in a room with overhead lighting at around 100 lux, which is about equivalent to an overcast day. The results show that while melatonin levels were similar in both groups, the group that spent a night with the lights on had higher insulin resistance in the morning, higher heart rate, and lower heart rate variability. Though Z and her colleagues were unable to conclude if these were clinically significant due to the small size of the study and the participants were a young, healthy group, they considered the change in insulin as a physiologically significant change that may translate into risk for disease. Other experts in the field noted that the study points the way for larger scale trials over multiple nights to see if the results will be similar in other cohorts, such as older individuals. Elsie?
So Marvi, what lighting conditions do experts recommend when sleeping at night?
Well, Elsie, many scholars have said that the findings of this study reinforce the advice that darkness during sleep is important due to how light signals our circadian rhythm, our behavior, as well as our metabolism. Professor Jonathan Setternaes from Sweden said that people should try to have a sleeping environment that is as dark as possible, particularly for those that do shift work. Back to you, Elsie.
Thank you, Marvi Delphine, reporting live from Australia. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Elsie Marcos, live from Auckland, New Zealand. Good evening.
And before we close, we will leave you with a word, giving glory to God. From the book of Romans, chapter 2, verse 13. It says, "For not the hearers of the law are just before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified." The reasons behind the news March 15, 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Herlene Delgado.
And because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people. We give glory to God.